Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Franklin in the mountains of Western North Carolina and Northeast Georgia. Our welcome words this morning are adapted from Mark Lovin. Thank you for joining us this morning. We who bring a teaching of hope, we who bring a saving message, who welcome you, all who are searching, seeking, looking for more. All of us gathered here together to walk each other home. My name is Mary Teslow, and I'm pleased to be your service leader today. I am joined this morning by our Zoom stage manager, Annette Watlington, and Jude Lowry coordinating our music. The Zoom chat box is available for announcements or comments, and those who prefer to focus on the service can close it now and catch up later. Our church-related announcements. First, I'd like to point out that Bonnie Gramlich, our membership chair, has been working diligently on the directory, and she has a deadline of Friday for updating people's content and indicating to her if they want a print copy of the directory. It'll also be available in a variety of electronic forms. This week's UU View will have the details, so please watch for that carefully. Annette, do you want to check for any other announcements?
Anyone on Zoom who has an announcement, please go ahead and unmute yourself and make your announcement. Looks like we can continue on, Mary.
Thank you so much. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. We hope today's service enriches your journey. Today, we welcome back Constellation, Eric Thomas and Helen Wolfson, with a sermon and song titled "It's Sunday, Why Are You Here?" Eric and Helen are active members of the Eno River UU Fellowship in Durham. Eric is a singer, songwriter, guitarist. Helen plays the hammered dulcimer. Eric's influences are predominantly rock and roll and rhythm and blues, heavily seasoned with a number of other popular musical genres, including old-time, bluegrass, country, and blues. Helen's influences range from classical to Celtic to popular. Their blended style is as engaging as it is unusual. And now Constellation with the prelude, Forest Reverie, followed by Eric with the opening words.
Do you want me to try to share it from here?
I guess so. That's all that will play from the source I received.
Okay, let me try it.
These words are attributed to Kalidasa, a Sanskrit poet from the 5th century. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
Thank you, Eric. Our chalice lighting is by 19th century UU minister, Reverend Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Jude, our spirit of life. Thank you, Jude. And now Helen and Eric with their sermon and song, It's Sunday, Why Are You Here?
Before I start, I want to say that because we've rearranged your usual order of service, we're going to ask that you hold questions till the end of the service, and then we'll be happy to do our best to answer any questions you have. I'm also going to say I'll attempt to share the other music videos unless I hear otherwise. My CPU is heating up. We've got ice packs under it, so we'll just keep your fingers crossed. The typical welcome of our UU Fellowship, the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUFF for short, includes a line something like, "We're so glad that you chose to spend your Sunday morning with us." This Sunday morning, we're going to explore why humanists like me and Eric who don't believe in a higher power beyond the collective power of humanity choose over and over again to come to a place that looks an awful lot like a place where people gather to worship the higher power that we don't believe in. We hope that this exploration will encourage you to reflect on why, whatever your cosmology, you made the choice to be here this morning. I don't exactly know when I gave up on God. There was a time in elementary school when I borrowed a catechism, hid it under my pillow, prayed, and said the rosary. It was so reassuring to have someone know not only the questions to ask, but also the answers. But somewhere in early adolescence, God and I parted company. I wish I could remember if there was some particular catalyst that precipitated my rejection of a supernatural being, or if it was just a logical progression of events. In any case, with God out of my life, I saw no reason to go to church. And for decades, the only time that I crossed the threshold of a church-like institution was for a wedding or a memorial service. By the spring of 1997, though, some 35 years later, although I still didn't believe in God, I was pretty well ensconced in a church-like place called the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Durham, North Carolina. How had that happened? At the time, it would have been easy for me to articulate several reasons why I chose to spend my Sunday mornings at UUFF. First of all, I wanted my children to be exposed to and explore different wisdom paths, to connect with other adults who were likely to share my ethical outlook, and to meet other children whose families didn't fit the traditional religious mold. Quite simply, I wanted them to know that Unitarian Universalism existed in case at any point in their lives they needed it. Another reason that compelled me to choose UUFF Sunday morning after Sunday morning was the desire to contribute to making the world a better place. This value had been instilled in me by both my parents, but especially my mother, a registered nurse who stopped working when she married and devoted her life to raising children and to volunteer work. She set an example as a do-gooder that was impossible for me, a working single parent at the time, to live up to. She single-handedly started Trick or Treat for UNICEF in the city I grew up in. She wrote to all 100 senators whenever she was upset about something, which was not infrequent. And mind you, this was before personal computers and email. And during the Vietnam War, she helped countless young men obtain conscientious objector status or medical deferments. Her guiding philosophy, as she told me once after I had expressed the simple desire to be happy, was, "You weren't put here to be happy. You were put here to do good." There is a lot to unpack in that statement from my agnostic mother, but here I simply want to say that even in 1997, I could have told you that one reason that I went to UUFF was that I understood that as part of this community, I'd be made aware of and educated about injustices near and far, great and small, and that UUFF would facilitate my finding ways to help make the world a better place in the small, erratic ways that fit my life as a single parent. A third reason for my Sunday morning choice was expressed in a letter that I wrote postmarked May 12th, 1997. Brother Charlie had been haranguing me to place a personal ad in our local progressive weekly newspaper. I'd put him off, insisting that in order to make myself stand out, I'd have to say that I played the hammer dulcimer and did origami, and that all my friends who read the ads for entertainment would immediately recognize me. Charlie had succeeded, however, in getting me to look at the personals, and there, to my surprise, I found an ad that was refreshingly day-to-day. It wasn't focused on the usual things like walking on the beach, dining by candlelight, or hiking above tree line, all things a single parent of young children can't do very often. And in the middle of the ad was one word: non-religious. It was a no-brainer that I should add this ad from the Eastern North Carolina native, who is now my husband. The only part that gave me any pause was this non-religious thing. It delighted me that he wasn't religious and would say so to the entire world in a personal ad. But how would I explain to someone who quite possibly had no idea what Unitarian Universalism was, why a humanist like me went to a church-like place. Here is what I said, May 12th, 1997. I am non-religious in that I don't believe in any power higher than the goodness in and the connections among people. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Durham. A colleague recently asked me if the UU denomination was religion with God optional. I have to say that although it sounds a bit absurd, for me, that isn't far from the truth. It's important for me to have this community of folks with similar ideals with whom to talk, to work, and to play. So there you have it. In 1997, my third reason, and the one that I chose when I had limited room to explain myself, was community. While being part of an ethical community continues to be an important part of why both Eric and I come to UUFF year in and year out, we've also come to understand that being in community isn't just an end in itself. Being in community provides the substrate for powerful experiences that you simply cannot have on your own. One of the most obvious of these is what the Unitarian Universalist Association designated as a theme for our 2019 General Assembly, the power of we. When we're part of a Unitarian Universalist community, we can do so much more than we can do alone, because it's only in some kind of community that we can have shared principles and shared goals. Alone, you can have dreams, and you can work to make those dreams come true. In community, we can dream together of the world we want to create and work together to make that world a reality. In community, we dream and work and play together. When you tire, someone else can shoulder more. When you succeed, others will celebrate your success. And when you stumble, others will lift you up. Our shared vision of the future is kept alive in many hearts so that our personal ups and downs don't derail our progress. Discouragement and despair don't exactly evaporate in the face of community, but they're easier to manage and they lose some of their power. So please join us now as we pause and reflect on the power of community.
A few years ago, our fellowship worked together to develop a bold vision statement. This statement didn't come to us from a divinity or even from an ecclesiastic hierarchy. It came from the hard work of members and friends of the congregation, and it describes our collective vision for the UUFF of the near future.
Take a moment now to find a comfortable position, to close your eyes, and to focus on your breath. Let's take a deep breath in together and let it out slowly. And one more. As Eric and I read this vision statement, I ask that you continue to breathe slowly and listen with all your being to the commitment that our members have made to each other. While the words themselves are specific to our fellowship, I suspect that the sentiments are not.
We are a vibrant, diverse, engaged community where spirits are nourished, ideas thrive, and love finds action.
We are welcoming and radically inclusive. We recognize and value the humanity of all who come through our doors.
We actively and courageously work for racial, economic, social, and environmental justice, and are deeply committed to dismantling the divisive cultures of dominance in our society.
Grounded by our principles, we radiate love, joy, and a spirit of generosity. Our deep connections sustain us and fuel both spiritual and personal growth.
We are a visible force for justice, equity, and compassion as we live into the ultimate transformative power of love.
Let us join in a brief silence as we consider this awesome vision of the power of community. After the silence, we'll share a musical meditation composed by Eric. You'll recall that Mary mentioned that Eric's roots are in rock and roll and rhythm and blues. And I am delighted to have had him branch out into this gorgeous piece. Every time I play it, I think how lucky I am to live with him. The vision statement that eRuffians created is one example of the strength of community. It's a powerful vision that none of us could have created alone and that none of us can fulfill alone. In community, we amplify each other's dreams and actions to create a bigger impact on our world. What other advantage does living in community provide? Next on my list is broadening of perspective. A UU Fellowship provides multiple opportunities for people to share their thoughts and experiences. At eRuff, these opportunities include reflections by lay people during our services, a spectacular summer spiritual odyssey session in which members share their spiritual journeys, and many small groups and workshops. In these places, people who've had different experiences from me or have thought about things differently share their often astonishing and moving stories. You would have to have a heart of stone not to be moved by the many examples of courageous sharing that happen as UUs pursue the third and fourth principles. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations and a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. These opportunities provide much for the mind and heart to consider. My perspective on so many things has been broadened by hearing about experiences and thoughts that are so different from my own. I believe that we each get exactly one life to live. In community, we share our life experiences so that we can benefit from each other's lives. We may not get more than one life, but we can share the wisdom, but we can share the wisdom garnered from the lives that others lived. So far, I've given you a number of reasons why a humanist like me might choose to spend Sunday morning at a UU Fellowship instead of at home making pancakes and reading the paper. They include wanting a religious experience for my children, wanting to help make the world a better place, wanting to be part of a community, and wanting to experience those broadened perspectives and the amplification of goals and efforts that a community provides. However, for me at this point in my life and in my journey as a UU, the most compelling reason for me to continue showing up on Sunday mornings, even when the siren song of other options is strong, is the knowledge that attending UU services has a way of reminding me just how precious life is. Many, but not all of us, believe that the life we're living now is the only one we'll have. All of us believe that every day is precious. These ideas may sound obvious, but an all too common part of being human is to go on autopilot. We don't necessarily take life for granted, but sometimes we take this particular day or this particular person or this particular routine for granted. Poets, I think, are better at remembering the ephemeral nature of life than most of us. UU services, where poetry often takes the place that scripture would take in a more traditional venue, are rife with poetic reminders. Our opening words today, look to this day, capture the essence of the value of the moment as beautifully as anything I've ever heard. It was from a UU minister more than 15 years ago that I first heard the poem from Jenny Joseph that begins this way. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat that doesn't go and doesn't suit me. The poet goes on to detail the things she's waiting to do, like going out in her slippers in the rain and learning to spit. And she ends, but maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start wearing purple. When I first heard that poem all those years ago, I began to wonder what I was putting off. Learning to spit isn't high on my list, but immersed as I was in what I was doing, I hadn't given much thought to what I wasn't doing. This poem definitely planted a seed inside me. It was in another UU service that I first heard the often quoted gem from the late poet Mary Oliver that ends, tell me, What do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I had no idea what she meant. A calling seemed to me like a tap on the shoulder from a deity in the sky. And I knew that that wasn't going to happen. Then one day in a parent education seminar at my son's school, I connected with a woman who, like me, sought respite from stress in playing music. As we were discussing the refuge we found in making music, she told me that she'd been trained by the Music for Healing and Transition Program, MHTP, to play music at bedside for others who needed refuge, people who were chronically or terminally ill. At that moment, something in my mind just lit up, and I knew that playing at bedside was something that I wanted to do. Back at home, I located the MHTP training center nearest to me. I put in the coursework, I read the books. I spent a year trying to get the 45 hours of hammers on the strings experience that I needed to fulfill the requirements for the certificate. By the time I earned the certificate, I was a volunteer at 2 hospices and had played for numerous hospice patients, as well as for residents in assisted living and for homebound patients. As I played for these people, I came to understand that what I experienced when I first heard about playing at bedside was a calling, not by some deity up in the sky who was finally speaking to me, but by my most authentic self. And it was telling me where my gifts could meet the world's needs. The only problem was I didn't have the time to make bedside music a substantial part of my life. But once you're called, it's difficult to escape answering the call, especially if you frequent a UU community. There are just so many thought-provoking ideas presented and so many opportunities to think and talk about what is really important that it's hard to avoid examining your life. Eventually, I reached the conclusion that although it would be imprudent to quit my day job altogether, I needed to make a change that would enable me to spend more time playing therapeutic music. Then I had to convince my employer to let me give back 1/3 of my salary in exchange for their giving me back 1/3 of the precious heartbeats that I had been giving them. I am confident that I wouldn't have radically altered my everyday work routine and taken a big pay cut if I hadn't heard one UU minister after another speaking about how precious life is, about how we each have our own gifts, and about how we are called to use our gifts to make the world a better place. They encouraged me to examine my priorities and to make critical choices that required me to let go of the familiar routine of my life and take a step into the unknown. I worked this part-time schedule for 3 years, and then I opted to retire early, which allowed me to devote even more time to playing therapeutic music. Although I began this journey before UUFF had articulated its mission, our mission statement, which we wrote later, helped me put the journey in perspective. UUFF's mission includes the intention to transform lives by building a free and inclusive covenantal religious community of spirit, service, justice, and love. And by golly, UUFF and Unitarian Universalism in general have transformed my life. I tended to think of transformation as a sudden thing, like Paul's transformation on the road to Damascus. And I guess that sometimes it is. But in my case, this transformation was wrought incrementally over years in a slow but steady path that in retrospect seems inevitable, but really was anything but. It took a village, and it took years for me to do the discernment and find the path that I follow. As I look back over my years as a therapeutic musician, I realized that this transformation wasn't just about me. I've played for hundreds of critically ill people, residents in various facilities, families, visitors, and staff. I've watched the heart monitors of agitated babies plummet within a minute of my starting to play. I've seen exhausted parents in the pediatric intensive care unit put their heads down on their child's bed and go to sleep for the first time in far too long. And just last week, for the first time, I played for a hospice patient's wedding in the hospice room. I've had staff tell me how relaxing and peaceful the music is, and I've been approached by other musicians who want to learn more about doing this work. Clearly, the work that I'm called to do reaches beyond me and transforms the lives of others. I know little or nothing about most of the people I play for. I wouldn't recognize them if I later passed them on the street. Yet the music connects us and allows me to bring the transformative power of music and human concern into the world. Therapeutic music is the one thing that I do that I am confident makes the world a better place. But the inspiration to change my life, to follow my heart's calling, wasn't the end of the road. I still get up most Sunday mornings and attend a UU service. My experience has taught me that a UU Fellowship, indeed the UU community at large, is awash in big ideas and in people who are passionately committed to them. It's full of people searching for meaning in their lives, full of people who want to transform the world into a loving, sustainable, equitable, just community of human beings, no two of whom are alike. Unitarian Universalism puts more ideas in front of us than we can possibly process. You never know in which Sunday morning service or in which small group discussion one of them will catch hold of your heart. You never know when transformation for you and by extension for the world is just around the corner. I can look back at my path over the last 15 or 20 years and marvel at the changes and the role that my UU community has played in them. And if I'm lucky enough to live another 15 years, I hope that I'll look back in similar amazement at the changes in my life and at the important role that this community has played in determining the course of my life. I may be a non-theist, but going to services in UU communities has transformed my life and the lives of those I interact with. I highly recommend it to theist and non-theist alike.
Thank you, Helen and Eric, for the gift of your sermon and song. It is such a blessing to us. We are deeply, deeply grateful. Our offering words this morning are from Reverend Victoria Weinstein. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. Our gifts allow us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support the self-supporting congregation. At this time of year, pledge statements are being mailed. If your situation permits, an additional financial contribution would be deeply appreciated. All gifts of time, talent, and treasure from our fellowship family are received with gratitude. Eric and Helen will share our offertory.
Get up Sunday morning, could decide to stay home and maintain a leisurely pace. Instead I get dressed and looking my best, come here to this church-like place. My community's here, in fellowship we're embracing the whole human race. Support for ourselves and justice for all, promoted in this church-like place. Atheist and Jew, Christians and a few folks just looking for their place. They're all welcome here, they enter with no fear, embraced by this church-like place. Black, white, or brown, raised up or cast down, no matter where your birthplace. If you're LGBT, it don't matter to me, you're welcome in this church-like place. No one gets upset about what you believe, everyone finds a safe space. What makes sense to you might be a mystery to me. We're all searching in this church-like place. We're each on a path to try and make sense of our purpose in life's steeplechase. The answers you'll find will be different from mine, and that's just fine in this church-like place. Consider issues of morality, justice, wealth, class, and race, standing together in solidarity, united in this church-like place. We think about things that matter in life, the issues that all people face. Our mission is nutrition of the human condition. We all flourish in this church-like place. We all flourish in this church-like place. We all flourish in this church-like place.
Wonderful, thank you. Dedication of our gifts. The gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope. And now Helen and Eric with the closing words.
We close with these words from One Light, Many Windows by the late UU minister, Forrest Church. So why do we choose to join together rather than exercise our full freedom to believe what we will in the privacy of our homes on Sunday mornings? Simply because experience has taught us that we need one another. We need guidance in recognizing our fears or our tears in one another's eyes. We need prompting to raise our sights and companions in the work of love and justice to enhance our neighborhood and to strengthen our witness in the world.
And yes, we choose to gather here because we know how easily we slip back into mechanical habits that blunt our consciousness. We need and know we need to be reminded week in and week out how precious life is, how wondrous and magical, how truly miraculous. Not only to be reminded of these things for our own sake, but for the sake of our loved ones and our neighbors as well. Forrest Church.
Extinguishing Our Chalice. Many congregations extinguish their chalice at the close of worship, sometimes with a reminder that those who have gathered together now carry the warmth of human community and the light of truth with them throughout the week. The fire is not so much extinguished as born in the heart of each person, a new expression of what Ralph Waldo Emerson called divine spark, the manifestation of divine possibility within each human soul. When we're together, we circle our round sanctuary and join hands for our closing circle and covenant. For now, we will join hands in spirit as we recite our covenant together. We have a new addition this morning of a slide that has the covenant words on it. And our Annette will show that for us in just a second. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it be. We now move to joys and concerns and our community conversation time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this moment to reflect on our joys and concerns and acknowledge the mutual support of our fellowship family.